Hey everybody! In today's video, we are going to do some no-line coloring on these adorable little otters and maybe even get some otter facts. I'll see if I have time. So I'm stamping these otters over a piece of Post-it tape on some cold pressed watercolor paper. Now the purpose of this Post-it tape is not to seal the area underneath the tape from getting any paint on it at all. If you want that to happen, you are going to need something like frog tape, delicate surface tape, to really mask yourself off a clean line. I don't need a clean line because I'm going to be painting the masked off portion as if it existed, but without the stamp line. So I'll be painting in sort of the underwater shape of the bottom of their bodies. So it's fine with me if a little bit of watercolor leaks underneath the tape, but I just don't want you to think you're setting this up to be perfectly masked because this is not the proper tape for that. This is to give me a level water surface area and a line to paint the water on, as well as painting their bodies underneath the water. So I'm using my Daniel Smith watercolor here. I'm just going to paint these little sea otters gray, even though they're actually kind of brown in real life. And I'm going to add just a little bit of blue to each one of these otters. This is to mimic sort of a reflection, but it's also just an artistic technique that I really like to do, just little pops of kind of unexpected color on animals. It makes it more interesting. Actually, my pinned video is on this topic exactly. So if you want to watch that, just click on my main channel and it'll be the featured video. So I'll add this color, and this color also is going to be the color that I'm using for the water, so it will be somewhat harmonious. Now, here's an otter fact for you. Otters actually have the thickest fur of any animal. Even bears don't have as thick a fur as otters. And that's because unlike other water-dwelling mammals, otters do not have a blubber layer. They have to stay warm with their thick fur. It's probably part of the reason that they're so cute. They do not, however, have pink cheeks. That is all me. I'm just doing that. So I'm doing wet on wet watercolor here. I'm putting down clean water everywhere. I've cut some of that out just so the brush motion isn't distracting. But anywhere that you see me putting down color and it's just sort of seeping in, that is because there is clean water underneath that. And you can see me doing that here. I am going to paint this little otter baby a different color just to make him stand out from the mama a little bit. It will also be a gray, but it's going to be a warm gray with a little bit of opacity to it. I don't know for a fact that baby otters are a different color than their parents, but most babies are a slightly different color. Baby fawns are here in Texas, and other animals as well. So I'm painting this little mama the same color as the dad over there. Notice how carefree the dad is. He's like, I don't have to hold the little baby, so I'm just flapping around in the water. Sea otters will create duct tape, if you will, made out of seaweed that allows them to stay together when they sleep, which I find incredibly sweet and adorable. And I read that scientists have seen as many as 1,000 otters seaweeded together in what they call a raft. So they're just hanging out with their friends even when they're asleep, and they're tying themselves to each other with seaweed. It's adorable. Otters are also one of the few animals that use tools. So that's kind of interesting. Now you can see here that some of that watercolor, like I told you, had seeped under the tape. No big deal. That's going to add to the reflection, sort of, or whatever you want to call that obscured part of the otter underneath the water. When I go over the water in this section with the blue watercolor, that's just going to add to the illusion that you're going to see their bodies through the water, through that transparency of the water. So to begin with, I will paint the entire area with water. Whenever I'm painting water, I always do wet on wet because it gives you a natural variation to the color that I think kind of mimics water. So I'll paint right up to the part of the otters that I painted on purpose. So I'll be painting over that little bit of watercolor that seeped underneath the tape. Now I'm using the same color here that I used on the otter, but I think it's more interesting if you use more than one. So I'm also going to add a different blue in here, and I'm going to add some darker spots, some lighter spots. It's just an easy way to do water, and I think that it looks really realistic. So now I'll go in and paint this baby. You can see the gray I'm using is on the lower right of my little container, and you can see how much warmer a color it is than the one that I used on the 2 parental unit otters. So he stands out just a little bit, and he's so tiny and cute. So I'm using my smallest paintbrush here. It's a 2 or a 4. I actually can't remember if it's my smallest, but look how cute he is, and he's smiling in his sleep. So sweet. Now I painted the nose on that otter pink, but I'm going to go back and paint that black. Actually, just a really dark version of the gray. And then I'll add some little white gel pen highlights to make the eyes and the nose look shiny after I paint them black. Now I use wet watercolor on dry paper to add some of these detailed shaded areas, just harsher grays, just to give the illusion of depth and dimension, and to add just a little bit of a pop against that soft no-line watercolor. This is one of my favorite parts of finishing a no-line watercolor, is adding those really stark and crisp dark darks onto it. I think that that really kind of makes the whole thing come together and makes you appreciate the softer parts of the no-line watercolor. For this image, I stamped it in VersaFine Clair in one of their light grays instead of a no-line watercolor, just because this is a smaller image and I knew the image was going to be gray. So I stamped it in gray ink. I only had to stamp it once because VersaFine Clair is great on watercolor paper. And that way I can blend the gray watercolor into that stamp line, give that no line feel, but still have enough detail that I can really see it while I'm painting. So now I'm going to add a little bit of gray to give the illusion of the bodies underneath the water. And there are a couple of steps to this. So first you want to kind of create the shape of the bottom of the otter. So it's just a very simple half circle that I'm painting with the same color gray. But you also want that to blend into the water, because if you were looking through the water at this little otter belly, it would have a soft edge because it would be a little bit distorted by the water that you're looking through. So after I put down the wet watercolor, then I clean and remove some of the water from my brush, and I just go over the edge so that there's not just a harsh semicircle shape there. It has a much more natural look. And I just wipe, you'll see me wiping off the water off my brush onto my hand. Bad habits, die hard. But you can just wipe it off on a paper towel. You really want to control the water that you're softening the shape with, and that will give you a softer edge and won't leave you with any little areas where the water has pushed the pigment around and given you a hard edge. So that's how you avoid hard edges, is by controlling your water. So I'm going to add some more details to the mom and add that same shading with the wet watercolor on the dry paper in the areas that would be shaded on her. On the dad, the little flipper is kind of behind him. I guess it's not a flipper. Is it a paw? I don't know. That is not one of the otter facts I learned. I'm going to call it a flipper because it's cute. It's a cute word. So don't come at me, flipper defenders. And then I will go in and soften down some of those edges. On their heads, since their heads are round, I do like to put a little darker shadow to make their faces look more dimensional. They are so cute. And you can see that I painted the nose that dark gray and the eyes that dark gray as well. And of course I gave her pink cheeks as well. That little baby is so darn cute. Oh my gosh. All the supplies I'm using are down in the description, of course. And if you wouldn't mind giving me a like and a thumbs up, that puts me into the algorithm so that other crafty people can watch this. So I appreciate all of you who click the like button, especially if I know some people don't like to comment, and I totally get that. But if you hit the like, it helps me out a lot. So there are some little white gel pen dots on the eyes and the nose that just adds like that shiny look that also I think adds quite a bit of dimension. And these pens, these never fail me, literally never fail me. They're just the best. Now her eyes are closed, so she and the baby just get a little dot on the nose. It's such a sweet image. Oh my gosh. But you can see how that soft belly underneath the water looks really, really cute and somewhat realistic. I hope you've enjoyed this. Head over to my blog for more information, and thanks so much for watching.